As we've spent these months together in times of prayer throughout our days, you know a little bit about me as I've told some stories, and one of the things you know is that I was never a good student, and part of which I didn't do well is I can't remember. I read and I don't remember what I read. I have to go back and reread it. I have to write things down in class when I'm listening. It's hard for me to remember, and there's not many homilies. In all due respect to my two brother priests who give wonderful homilies, it's hard for me to remember a homily if I don't write it down or make a note of it or try to remember at least a word. But one homily I do remember from about 25 years ago now, I think, maybe a little bit longer, was by then Bishop McDowell, auxiliary bishop of Pittsburgh, God rest his soul. He gave a homily. It was at St. Sebastian Church. Two classes ahead of me were ordained deacons. And at the end of the Mass, he would give a homily at the beginning of Mass. He'd give a homily in the middle. At the normal time after the readings, he'd give a homily at the end of the Mass too. And that's the one I remember, because he told the 5 men who were ordained deacons. He said, "Let me give you some advice." He said, "No, now that you're ordained deacons, you are ordained men of the church." He said, "Know this and remember it well, that you will always be the bottom rung of the ladder. Never look to be more than just the bottom rung of the ladder." And I've quoted him. Alec can tell you, I've quoted him to many of the seminarians, because that's what we're shooting for as deacons, as priests, to be a bottom rung of the ladder, because it's the first step, right? It's the first step to get you closer. And hopefully our goal as priests, as deacons, is to get you closer to heaven, or help to get you closer to heaven. As I think about my own life and reflect on it, through the eyes of St. Lawrence today. St. Lawrence, who really gave his life literally. He was grilled to death on an iron grate, as his broken bones were burned. He did that for us to use as a rung to get closer to heaven. You think about in our own lives. I think about in my own life. I think about Mary Beers, who was the sacristan at Little Holy Cross Church, who taught me how to serve when I was 9 years old. I think about Jimmy DeVelli, who gave me my first job at Schaefer and Snyder drugstore. I think about Dorothy Whitkey, who was my boss coming out of occupational therapy school. I think about Tony Drosdale, who volunteered his time as the custodian at our church. I think about my mom and dad, my aunt. Maybe Father Steve might think about Grandma Neff or his mom and dad. I know Father Ken has a good friend, Father DeFosco, who really helped him, tremendously in the seminary. And Father Ken, stood on his shoulders to get through seminary. All of these people helped us to maybe get a little farther, closer to heaven. I guess what I'm trying to say, and what has been in my prayer all morning, is unless a grain of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains just a grain of wheat. But if it dies, it produces much fruit. What will you do? What will I do today to lay down my life, to become the bottom rung of the ladder? St. Paul says, the Lord loves a cheerful giver. If we think about the psalm today, Psalm 112, blessed the man who is gracious and lends to those in need. Happy the man. The reason this psalm that you go closer in is, bless the man, or happy the man who walks closely with God. To become the bottom rung of the ladder is to walk closely with God. To know that we're not alone. That while there's darkness surrounding us, and there's the uncertainty of life, there's the uncertainty of life around us. But the one thing we know for sure is that one step closer to Jesus is one step closer to heaven. And one step closer to heaven is the ability, or when we lay down our life. Think about how you might become the bottom rung of the ladder for someone today. Maybe it's through a phone call, just to see how someone's doing. Maybe it's, offering to pray for a particular person. Maybe it's just doing an act of kindness, or if you will, an act of Christianity. Maybe it's just simply changing our mindset to be that of Jesus Christ. That's the mindset that St. Lawrence had. And that's the mindset that we are called to if we're truly going to die like that grain of wheat and be happy by walking with the Lord. My brothers and sisters, today, let's think about those moments in our lives that we have the opportunity to help someone get to heaven. And let's do it, knowing that we're standing on the shoulders of someone that helped us. And before you know it, by the grace of God, we will be there and we will see God in all of his glory. Amen.